Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us during Lytham Partners Winter 2021 Investor Conference. My name is Ben Shamsian, Vice President of Lytham Partners. During this fireside chat, we welcome Perimeter Medical Imaging, ticker PYNKF on the OTC, and PINK on the TSXV. Presenting from Perimeter Medical is CEO Jeremy Sobotta. Before we begin, for those not familiar, Lytham Partners is one of the country's leading investor relations firms. With more than 2 decades of corporate access experience, we have built one of the industry's most diverse and effective platforms for connecting small cap companies with high quality and focused institutional investors, while creating a framework of best practices in all aspects of investor relations. Today's fireside chat is hopefully yet another example of where we can bring value to multiple constituents. We'll dive into questions in a moment, but one final item, I want to remind everyone that Perimeter Medical is available for one-on-one meetings later this week. If you have not already signed up, please send me an email at shamsian@lythampartners.com. That's SHAMSIAN@lythampartners.com, or visit lythampartners.com/virtual and click the one-on-one meeting request button. With that said, let's begin, Jeremy. I want to start by you providing a brief overview on the company and your background.
Great. Thanks, Ben, and thanks for having us at the Lytham conference again. Happy to be here sharing the Perimeter story with you. So Perimeter Medical Imaging AI, I typically describe us as an early stage medical device company. We are a company that's right at the transition from product development into commercialization. We're commercializing our flagship product, which was FDA cleared earlier this year, and we're at the clinical validation phase on a next generation technology with that product, which includes artificial intelligence in our medical imaging technology to help the users adopt the technology more quickly and get it widespread as quickly as possible. And what we are doing is transforming cancer surgery with ultra high resolution and real-time imaging tools to help surgeons, surgical oncologists specifically, address an unmet need called intraoperative margin assessment. So just to help folks understand that aren't familiar, when a surgeon is performing a cancer surgery, so think lumpectomy or partial nephrectomy for kidney cancer, they remove the tumor from the patient, and their goal is to remove that tumor with a barrier of cancer-free tissue around the outside of that. That's called the margin. And what they do is they remove that tumor from a patient, send the tumor specimen to a pathology lab, which can take anywhere from 2 days to a week to examine that specimen. And they're looking to see if there's any cancer at the edge, at the perimeter of the tissue. If they find cancer at the perimeter, that's called a positive margin. And in the case of breast cancer patients, the risk of cancer coming back doubles for that patient. So instead of accepting that risk, the patient would come back for another operation, surgeon would go in and remove additional tissue. And what Perimeter's technology does is brings that microscopic level imaging into the operating room, so the surgeon can see those margins and visualize those margins in real time. And if they find cancer at the perimeter with our technology, they can go back in right away, take additional tissue, instead of sending the patient home and dealing with all the costs and complications of a reoperation.
Got it. Can you give us a couple of seconds on yourself and your background?
Oh, yes, definitely. So I joined Perimeter in 2019. I've been with medical devices my whole career, spent most of my career with Stryker in different business development and finance roles, deployed over $4 billion in capital with them, buying companies just like Perimeter over the years, and had been a part of a couple of different breast cancer surgery acquisitions, one being Invuity, which was different lighted retractors and different surgical instruments for breast cancer surgeons, and Novadac, which was a fluorescence imaging company. And after those two acquisitions, as we were really trying to execute on our strategy around women's health, one of the things that continued to come up from our sales force and our customers was needing something to help our customers solve this intraoperative margin assessment problem. breast cancer surgeons would say this is the holy grail of technology because it's such a widely acknowledged problem. It's a low quality outcome that both the providers feel it and the payers feel it. So was pretty active in diligence trying to find a name that could help our customers solve this problem. Didn't like any of the names I looked at back then, and when the Perimeter opportunity came up, obviously I was already really high on the space itself and could see that Perimeter really has a differentiated technology and solving it in a way that customers are willing to adopt, customers are willing to pay for, but also has a great business model that can, is a self-funding P&L. So as our install base grows, our gross margin expands, cash flow expands, and we can really start focusing on innovation around this flagship technology that we're taking to market today.
Got it. What are some of the competitors or other companies that are tackling this problem?
Yeah, so I continue to, I describe us as not having any competition. We are, a different level of imaging in the OR. Now, you're starting to hear more regularly intraoperative imaging and intraoperative visualization is becoming a little more commonplace, and people are excited about it. But those are typically done for navigation purposes, not diagnostic confirmation purposes like we're bringing to the market. So there are a couple of substitutes, I would say, for our technology today. One would be a handful of institutions out there try to do it pathology intraoperatively. So it's called frozen section pathology. Now it's an extremely expensive proposition. Something that the likes of a community hospital would never be able to implement. You need to have a pathology lab, preferably on site, hopefully in the same building. Usually it's on a different floor or quite some time away from the operating room. And, effectively they cut some corners to try to get it done intraoperatively instead of the process they would take, in the full 2 days to a week. And so, a lot of our customers and surgeons particularly would express frustration with that process. It's expensive, you need to find a pathologist when you're operating. And, there's a lot of opportunity for challenges that arise between the OR and the pathology lab on orientation and things like that. So it's done in a handful of institutions, but really not scalable. And one of the things I would say is, effectively those results that frozen section can get you in an institution like a Mayo Clinic, for example, our technology effectively democratizes that same kind of result because it's cost effective enough for community hospitals to pick it up and learn with it, but also the large scale institutions can benefit from this technology as well. Then the other end of the spectrum is some surgeons would X-ray a specimen that's been removed from a patient. One of your body's natural responses is to create little calcium deposits, microcalcifications. It's often the thing that people find on a mammography to indicate that there's breast cancer present. And the problem with that is you're effectively looking at a symptom of the disease instead of the actual disease. So we suffer from what's called a specificity problem, where you have a lot of false positives and you're taking unnecessary tissue. So the fact that our technology brings in microscopic resolution, so we're talking a level of resolution that's 100 times higher than MRI, 10 times higher than ultrasound or X-ray, that's really why we believe we're in a class of our own.
Got it. Can you talk about the numbers? What is the cost of reoperations for hospitals, and how does the hospital benefit monetarily by using your technology?
Yeah, certainly. Unfortunately, this reoperation rate or recurrence rate in lumpectomies is far too common today. So the actual rate is about 1 in 4 patients has to come back for a reoperation because of this positive margin problem. Some patients come back for multiple reoperations, which is obviously problematic. Some patients come back directly for a mastectomy, which has cosmetic implications, sensation implications for the patient. Obviously, they elected a breast-conserving surgery for a reason to begin with. So a big opportunity from an outcomes perspective to really improve things. And from an economics perspective, those patients who come back for a reoperation cost on average about $16,000 in additional treatment costs. So you've got 1 in 4 patients coming back for a $16,000 reoperation. So it's effectively an average cost of $4,000 per patient in potentially avoidable reoperation costs. And that's really just the hard dollars and cents. If you think about some of the soft costs that go around it, I just mentioned a couple there, poor cosmetic outcomes. You can have, surgical site infections or hospital acquired conditions, things like that. So, these are all the things that are difficult for providers from a patient satisfaction perspective or potential liability perspective. So really, between the $4,000 cost per patient from hard dollars and cents, and then the soft costs associated with it, tons of opportunity for the provider. Then as we think about, population shift and patient mix shift, this is really a technology that can be a revenue driver for these facilities as well. More and more institutions would love to become breast cancer centers of excellence, and having the leading, technology to help you achieve best-in-class results is, just a step in that direction to help patients or help attract patients to come to you instead of the hospital up the street, or to stay at your community hospital instead of going into the big city for your operation.
Got it. Let's move to the artificial intelligence piece here, or the AI piece. Where are you with regards to FDA approval, and what has been the experience of people who've used it so far?
Yeah, well, everybody's extremely excited to get that study moving along. The investigators that we have participating, are really a who's who within the breast surgery community. Our principal investigators, Dr. Alistair Thompson, who practices out of Baylor College of Medicine, practiced in the UK for 20 some years, practiced in MD Anderson for a little while, and was now really doing big things at Baylor. We have the chairman, Dr. Richard Fine, the chairman of the Coding and Reimbursement Advisory Group for the American Society of Breast Surgeons. So great guy to have involved with the technology and using it. We have the chairwoman of the research committee from the American Society of Breast Surgeons. That's Dr. Lee Wilkie out of the University of Wisconsin. So the list goes on and on there. And their experience thus far has been extremely positive. They're really excited. They've been through what we call the reader study portion of the study. So they're learning how effective they are at interpreting these images offline. Now we're just starting to get it into the AOR for these surgeons to use, and they're really excited. From an FDA perspective, we just recently announced our investigational device exemption to start the study. So that was one of the last regulatory hurdles before we got that going. And, effectively, we're really excited about, the breakthrough device designation. Now the FDA has granted us investigational device exemption, so we're off and ready to get the study rolling. And because we're a breakthrough designated device, gives us a lot of additional interactions with the FDA and the regulatory body to keep them abreast of the progress we're making, keep them engaged on our path to marketing clearance. And we think we've taken a big step in that direction with the IDE, the investigational device exemption, and the protocol updates that we've implemented from our feedback from the FDA.
Great, thank you. Do you expect the AI piece to be a selling point for the hospitals, the patients, or both?
Definitely both. So, what I can say from a direct-to-patient perspective, the breast cancer community is, as tight-knit as you'll find out there. It's really, the social media communities, the advocacy groups, they definitely, word of mouth is a really popular feature or aspect of breast cancer treatment, and patients talk to each other. So when new technology like this that can really disrupt, the normal workflow and change the game, I think, patients will begin to realize that and begin to start asking their surgeons for it, which is really the ultimate goal for us. Now, from a provider perspective, it definitely, our expectation is that surgeons will be more effective and more accurate when they're using the AI technology, and potentially faster as well. So, that's the whole purpose of the clinical validation study that's ongoing, is to, kind of help us, define what that step change is from the AI. But, we're really, really optimistic that we'll get the kind of results we expect, and it will just help to accelerate adoption. The way I describe it, our technology, so the existing cleared technology we have today, pre-AI, is great for about 30% of surgeons today. These are surgeons that use a lot of imaging in their practice. They use a lot of ultrasound. And, at the end of the day, our technology is a lot like ultrasound. Just instead of using sound waves, we use light waves. So for those surgeons to kind of use what they've learned in ultrasound and apply it to OCT is not a big leap. Once we get the AI, that 30% turns into 100% overnight, because it flattens the learning curve and makes the technology that much easier to adopt.
Got it. Let's talk about the rollout in 2022. What expectations for number of installs, and which hospitals, and sort of how does the initial placements look like?
Yeah, we've been getting a ton of market feedback over the last, call it 6 months. Since we've been cleared and out there in the market, the buzz is definitely there. There's a lot of demand and interest growing, which is great for us. We've, in the last, kind of late Q3 into Q4, we've really ramped up a significant amount of marketing efforts around trade shows and clinical events. So that continues to build momentum into the new year, and we're expanding our feet on the street as well. So, we have 5 full-time reps, market development managers out there today, looking to add more of those into the new year. And we're optimistic that with all of these efforts, we'll be into the, call it into double-digit install base by the end of next year, and kind of getting that, what we call, what we're calling kind of the train the trainer phase. So these early adopters, pre-AI, we want them to become our thought leaders when we're thinking about getting out into the community hospitals and beyond. So to have, the right institutions adopting this technology, the right surgeons being these early adopters, is really important for us. And, I think we're off to a good start, and ready to hit the ground running in 2022 for sure.
Great, thank you. Can you talk about the model a little bit? What kind of install base will get you to cash break or profitability? How can we think about that?
Yeah, so our model, particularly in these early days, is going to be a placement model. So we're firmly kind of a razor blade business between the capital component and the consumable component. And we want to shorten the sales cycle right now. That's our primary goal. So being able to place that capital unit at the facility so they can quickly start using the technology and drive utilization is important for us. And with that model, we expect our to be cash flow positive on an individual installation, somewhere between 6 months and 12 months, depending on the volume of the institution. So, as we think about install base to get the cash flow positivity, we've got a number of levers we can pull on there. But, we expect with the AI and the acceleration of adoption coming from the AI, that it won't be too far beyond that to get to cash flow positive.
Got it. Thank you, Jeremy. We appreciate your time today. For anyone out there who has not already signed up for a one-on-one, again, please send me an email at shamsian@lythampartners.com, or again, visit lythampartners.com/virtual and click the one-on-one meeting request button. We hope you all enjoy the rest of the conference, and have a good day.